like in this idea of being, generative, but also in this idea of this, like all these hats that are going on in this midlife period of taking care of your parents, of taking care of your kids, of working on your marriage if you are in a relationship, of focusing on your career where you might be at a pinnacle, all of these different hats that are going on at the same time. I wondered, Taz and I were talking earlier this morning about this idea of 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 it being feeling almost guilty that you're pulling time aside to focus on yourself during this transition, and recognizing how who am I becoming and where am I going. That's a very kind of selfish process in the midst of while you're kind of managing all these plates that are in the air, right? And so, Taz, can you talk a little bit about what you see in the patients and the mediocrity that we talked about?
Well, we were sharing this before we jumped on with you, Chip, and it's just this idea that women and men get stuck. And I think they get stuck in the hum and the busyness of all the responsibilities you already mentioned, the job, the kids, the parents, the finances, all of that other stuff. And oftentimes there isn't a catastrophic event or like an NDE of some kind to bring them to this like realization of like, okay, it's time to transition. Okay, it's time now. Let's put the ego aside. Let's move into this next phase. Instead, what happens, I find a lot of people, and this is what they tell me, settling. They settle for wherever they are. And that might be settling into a relationship that may not be 100% fulfilling, or into a job, that necessarily doesn't light them up or ignite them, but pays the bills, or a health condition that, they just are frustrated that they can't move forward, because health is a big part of this too. And, I had a patient just yesterday, she's going through a divorce. And I was, asking her how she's doing, and we were chit-chatting a little bit, and she was like, "Taz, it's not that he's bad or he's mean or he's abusive. It's just that he's not involved and there's zero communication. And I can't imagine living the next 30, 40 years of my life in this sort of situation." She goes, "I deserve better." She said that to me. She goes, "I think I deserve better. I deserve communication, intimacy, being excited about the day, wanting to go to dinner, not this sort of like blank slate." But she goes, "When you ask me what he didn't do anything. So she's struggling with a lot of shame and guilt about the fact that she's blowing up her family, filing for divorce, taking her son out of the home, all these different things. But I told her, we have to change. And if people don't change with you, what are you supposed to do? And I actually have that question for you too. Like, if you are realizing that you're in sort of this place of mediocrity as you hit midlife, what are you supposed to do? Do you blow up your life? Do you run away? Do you get a fake name? Like, what do you do?
Well,
So
the old Hollywood trope is for men is you have your midlife crisis, you buy a red sports car, and have an affair. But that is so rare. That doesn't happen like very much, except for Kevin Spacey in American Beauty. But the bottom line is what people need to get comfortable with. Dan Gilbert has a beautiful TED talk, Harvard professor, saying human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think they're done. And that is true for your whole life. So you're going through liminality, a word that a lot of people don't know. To be liminal means to be in transition between two things. And it's normal. It is normal. And so to actually be in a liminal state, it means you're alive. The question I like to ask at MEA with our students, our midlife students, average age of the person who comes to MEA is 54, and 64% are women. So it's a lot of people from all over the world, people from 50 countries. I like to ask the following question: what do you know now, or have you done now, that you wish you'd learned or done 10 years ago? And then once you got that in your mind, here's the more important question: 10 years from now, what will you regret if you don't learn it or do it now? And the reason that's a really valuable question is because anticipated regret is a form of wisdom. So for me,
Say that again.
that's a big one.
Anticipated regret is a form of wisdom. And that's a Chipism. I like my Chipisms.
I like that
that
Chipism.
too.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So for when I moved to Mexico at age 56, I asked that question, and I had a mindset. Let's recognize that there's fixed and there's growth mindsets, and these are all the kinds of things we teach at MEA. And we don't even know if we have a fixed mindset, and we have them all the time. And my fixed mindset when I moved to Mexico is I'm too old to learn a foreign language, and I'm too old to serve. But when I actually posed it in this question I just asked, which is what will I regret 10 years from now if I don't learn it or do it now? In that what it did is it gave me a catalyst to break through the fixed mindset, break through the stuckness, break through the boredom, and say, you know what? I am going to learn Spanish, and I'm going to learn how to surf. And if I don't like it, I don't have to keep doing it, but I'm going to try. And when you move out of the fixed mindset to the growth mindset, you're moving from feeling like you have only a fixed amount of whatever you've got, whether it's money or talent or time, and you can't, do better. Whereas in a growth mindset, you focus on improving yourself and learning, and you're less self-conscious. You're open to trying things and being a beginner again. And being a beginner is one of the most important qualities of midlife and beyond, is trying something new. Because if you only want to play the games that you can win, your sandbox is going to get smaller and smaller, and you'll get stuck and bored. So I just think that that's a really key piece of this. Learning how to be liminal, learning how to become a beginner again, learning how to move from a fixed to a growth mindset, and really getting comfortable with the idea that you can make some major changes in your life. One of the beauties of getting older is you start getting some time affluence. You do move to a place where your parents have passed, your kids have moved out of the house, and they haven't moved back yet. Let's be honest, this is a huge issue.
Right.
It's moving back or never moving out. It's an issue that didn't exist 30 or 40 years ago to the extent it exists today. But you have more time in your life, hopefully. And with that time gives you the opportunity to either sit on the couch and watch 47 hours of TV a week, which is what the average American retiree does.
So scary.
Yeah, scary. Or to say, you know what? I want to focus on something that I loved cooking pies with my grandma as a kid, and I'm a litigator, and I'm 60 years old, and I'm a woman who does not want to do that anymore. And I am going to go to pastry chef school, and I'm going to start a bakery and become an entrepreneur as a baker. And there's a litigator who came to a woman who came to MEA in our Baja campus, not in our Santa Fe campus where I am right now. And that's exactly what she did. So we really do need both new thinking, new questions, and then support community that actually helps us. That is one of the hardest pieces for a lot of people, is if you are stuck and your husband is stuck as well, when one of you tries to break free from the stuckness and open up the life so it's a little more interesting, the other one who's stuck may feel like you are betraying them.
Because right. Talk about that.
You're changing the system dynamic. The system dynamic is we all have our roles. On our own, we have a different role than when we're in the system of a family, for example. And John Bradshaw did work on this a long, long time ago. And the bottom line is, a system can confine you. And when you feel like you want to liberate yourself, you have to look at what are you going to do to help the system change. And this client of yours who is recently she's getting divorced. My sense is that that's where she is she wants to liberate herself from what feels like a bit like a jail. And she is in jail with her husband, and her husband seems to be content or has settled for that condition and is unwilling to break out of the jail. And therefore she has to. And she has to do that with her kids, because frankly, her kids will, even though in the moment have a hard time with it, maybe, they will look back and admire their mother for having broken out of jail.